Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Single Player Podcast. I'm your one and only host, I'm 16-Bit, and I got a good show for you this week. We'll be talking about the UN's new gaming initiative, as well as PlayStation's State of Play, Death Stranding going gold, plus more. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and we're back. And our first topic has to deal with the UN. Recently, they had their Climate Action Summit in New York, and apparently they've announced a new initiative with the video game industry called Playing for the Planet. And supposedly this new initiative is going to have game companies committed to environmentalism and to spreading the word about it and all that kind of stuff. They including corporate carbon footprint reductions and shift to green energy, commitments to offset emissions, and new circular economy design and recycling offerings to control plastic and e-waste. Of course, the one that made me laugh my ass off the most was insertion of green nudges into games. Folks, let's call that exactly what it is. Environmental propaganda. Like, that's all it is. It's just a nicer way of saying propaganda. So far, they've had 20 companies signed up for them. Not all of them game companies, actually. Some of them, including Green Man Gaming and Twitch, have signed on. Most of them are mobile developers, stuff like Niantic, Supercell, of course, Rovio, which kind of made me laugh because I'm like, they haven't been relative in years. Like, I remember when Rovio was like saying about how, game consoles are going to die. That's it. It's going to be mobile games in the future. And it's like, yeah, about that. Of course, the two big people signed up for this, of course, are Microsoft and Sony. In fact, Microsoft announced that they are dedicated to making their consoles carbon neutral. And Sony has also announced that they're going to try to make sure their consoles are also climate friendly. Of course, I find that kind of funny because these are the companies that made the most energy inefficient and power hungry consoles in gaming history, the 360 and the PS3. Like, those consoles required so much power, it was ridiculous. Like, the 360 had a power brick that was almost the size of the console itself, one of the largest power bricks I've ever seen in gaming. And the PS3 had a standard PC input for power. So I just find it hilarious that now Sony and Microsoft are suddenly, they care about the environment, and yet they made some of those power-hungry consoles of all time. Folks, it's virtue signaling. That's all this is. It's nothing more than a virtue signal. In fact, if you notice, it's mostly Western, it's mostly like American and European companies. Like, I haven't seen any Japanese companies signing on for this. Well, okay, maybe exception is Sony, but their entire PlayStation division is headquartered in North America, in LA. So it kind of counts as American. Of course, I also noticed that Nintendo is completely missing from this, and it's understandable because Nintendo hasn't really made like a power-hungry game console. In fact, basically, every console they've made has been basically energy efficient. I mean, of course, that's also because Nintendo stopped giving a crap about competing with Sony and Microsoft sometime after the GameCube. I think it was with the Wii was like when they were like, okay, we don't give a crap. We don't care that our console is completely underpowered compared to the 360 and the PS3. And I think that kind of worked in their favor because by the time the Wii U came out, the technology for creating HD gaming was much more energy efficient. And so that's why the Wii U and the Switch have basically been able to output the equivalent of the 360 and PS3 in such a small form factor. So anyway, next topic. Okay, so as many of you know, 2 weeks ago, Nintendo released the Switch Lite. And so far, the reaction to it seems to actually be pretty good. People seem to really enjoy it. The performance seems to be excellent. However, there's a bit of a problem. You see, many people are having issues with drifting on the analog sticks, much like they had on the original Switch. Well, as it turns out, according to several teardown videos, it turns out the Switch Lite is using the exact same analog sticks as the Nintendo Switch regular. So, let me get this straight. Nintendo fixes the battery life and the D-pad on the Switch, and they don't even fix the drifting issue. Seriously, Nintendo? What the hell? Come on already. This has been an issue since day one, and yet Nintendo still has barely done anything to actually fix the issue. I mean, oh sure, they've offered free repairs, but those usually don't last very long because many people who have done the repairs have found a few months later that their controller starts drifting all over again. Hell, Nintendo's had class action lawsuits filed against them for this kind of crap, so I don't even know why they're not even bothering to try and fix this stuff. You know, it's all tiresome. It really is. You know, you buy a console, you want it to work, and then it just decides, no, I don't want to work anymore. That's it. I'm done. Though supposedly this issue can actually be fixed easily. All you got to do is just get a can of air and blow it in the analog stick, and supposedly it will work. I haven't tested it out myself, but that's what people are claiming. So it's like, if it's so easy to repair, then why even bother paying $40 for a Joy-Con repair? We can just get a cheap can of air and just spray it. Anyway, next topic. And lastly, we've got Fallout 76, a game that has more problems than any game that I've ever seen. Well, it seems that it has one more, and that's involving the power armor helmet that came with it. Apparently, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission has issued a recall on the power armor helmet. They say, and I quote, "Mold can be present on the fabric insert inside the helmet, posing a risk of respiratory or other infections in individuals with compromised immune systems, damaged lungs, or an allergy to mold." Wow, how do you screw that up? How do you make sure that something as easy as a friggin' helmet can be susceptible to mold? I mean, really, come on, Bethesda. You like, how many times are you gonna drop the ball? I'll tell you what it is. They didn't just drop the ball. They freaking spiked it to the 9th level of hell. That's exactly what they did with Fallout 76. It just seems that no matter what Bethesda's done with this game, there's always has all these problems. And it's not just the version that came with the game. It's also the version that was an exclusive to GameStop. Apparently, they had a special Nuka-Cola edition, and that is also having problems with mold. So I don't know what's going on with Bethesda, and honestly, this kind of has me worried about the Doom Collector's Edition, because that's coming with this very special replica of the Doom Slayer's helmet. And it's like, okay, is that going to have the same problem? I don't know. But I'm just going to say, folks, be careful when it comes to purchasing anything from Bethesda at this point, because it will either scam you or they'll try to kill you. So anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and we're back. And this next segment is all about the state of play that Sony had this past week. Of course, they announced a couple of interesting games. Oh, well, interesting to some, maybe not to me. But the first game they announced was something called Humanity. And the best way to describe it is that it's basically Lemmings with humans, or at least that's what I got from it. You basically like control these hordes of people, and you basically control where they go and such. And I don't know. It just looks very weird. Sony seems to attract a lot of the artsy games a lot lately. So anyway, next up, and that's of course coming out in 2020. Anyway, next up, of course, is Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which I didn't realize is actually a soft reboot of the entire series. I thought this was a remake of Call of Duty 4, but no, they're basically rebooting the entire Modern Warfare sub-franchise. I think that's what you call it. And I don't know, it doesn't really do anything for me because honestly, I've only ever played one Call of Duty game, and that was Black Ops 2 on the Wii U. Other than that, I really have no interest in the series, and I'm surprised that it's still going on. I mean, usually by this point, franchises usually hit fatigue, and the fact that this hasn't yet is kind of surprising. Anyway, and then next up they announced Wadham, and it's a new game from the creator of Katamari Damacy and Nobi Nobi Boy, and of course, it's weird. Very, very weird. All I kind of got from the gameplay is that it's all about communication and sort of hanging out with various other weird creatures and all that kind of stuff. Of course, it's weird. But yeah, maybe I'd check it out. Probably. I still haven't played Nobi Nobi Boy, but I love Katamari Damacy. It's one of my favorite franchises out there, and I highly recommend you go check out the reroll version that came out recently of the original game. It's really good. Anyway, next up was another one called Arise, A Simple Story, and simple is very much correct. Again, it's one of these artsy platformers that's all minimalism and all that kind of crap. It kind of reminded me of Journey. That's sort of the vibe I was getting from it, but it's not made by the same people. I don't know. Maybe it looks interesting. Maybe I'd check that out. And that's coming soon. Next up, they talked about various VR games that are coming out very soon. One of which was LA Noire: The VR Case Files, which is now available. But they also did a showcase including Gorn, Aspire 1 VR Operative, Stardust Odyssey, After the Fall, and the last one which really caught my attention, which was Space Channel 5 VR Kinda Funky Newsflash, which for me just came right out of nowhere because I would have never expected Sega to come out with a new Space Channel 5 game. Anyway, next up they talked about the Medieval remake, which is coming out very soon, but right now you can download a demo for it, and I gotta say, I'm thoroughly impressed with this game. It's one of those remakes like Crash Bandicoot or Resident Evil where they keep the basic gameplay and level design and basically everything, but they completely revamp the graphics. And I gotta say, it looks gorgeous. It plays incredibly well. I'm really happy to see that they're taking a lot of care with this game because, you know, it's one of those franchises that doesn't really get that much love from Sony. And so I'm just really glad that they're actually, like, putting it out there. Anyway, next up, they announced that Civilization 6 is coming to the PS4. Of course, this was announced a few weeks ago, but it's also coming out to the Xbox One as well. And I have yet to actually play Civilization 6, but it looks very interesting. I've been thinking about getting the Switch version, though. And that's going to be coming out on November 22nd. Next up, of course, was Death Stranding is getting a PS4 Pro bundle. And I gotta say, it actually looks kind of cool. I'm not going to get it, but that controller looks awesome. It's like a translucent yellow color, and that looks really cool. Anyway, next up was, of course, this other game that looked real interesting called After Party. And from what I gather, from what I've seen, it's basically like, it seems like it's a series of mini games and challenges where basically you go to hell, and in order to escape, you have to like challenge him to several the devil and his minions to several drinking games. It looks like a fun little game, so definitely gonna check that one out. And that's coming out on October 29th. Next up, they announced the 2 free PlayStation Plus games for October. One of which, of course, MLB The Show 19, and the other was Last of Us Remastered. I don't have PlayStation Plus. I haven't had PlayStation Plus in, I don't know, 3 years, so I have no interest in that. And last but not least, there was a new trailer for The Last of Us Part 2, and I'm going to be quite frank. I did not care for the original Last of Us, nor do I care for Last of Us Part 2, because honestly, it just seems like more of the same. That's the problem I've had with Naughty Dog for a while, is that basically all their games have played the exact same since 2007, and it's kind of getting annoying and getting stale. But anyway, what was interesting about this trailer was that apparently Joel is back, so okay, that's interesting. But other than that, it just it does nothing for me. And of course, that's coming out on February 20th, 2020. So honestly, when it comes to this whole thing, there was like maybe one or two things that actually had my interest, and everything else just was kind of meh. Look, I understand like this Sony has just only started understanding how to do a direct, but they need to add more games to it, especially since this was really short. It's only like over 20 minutes long, and that's it. It's like, come on, Sony, you got to add more stuff into it, because you can't just add like, what, 7 games and that's it? Okay, maybe it wasn't just 7. Maybe it was like, I don't know, 10 games. But that was it. That's all they showed. So anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and we're back. And our next topic, of course, has to deal with Steam. This past week, the District Court of Paris actually ruled that Steam users have the right to resell games they buy on the platform. That's right. Apparently, this comes from a 2015 case that was filed against Valve by a group called the Federal Union of Consumers, and they feel that consumers should have the right to resell their goods. Well, thankfully, the court ruled in their favor, and apparently they cited a European court ruling from 2012 that actually stated that digital goods can, in fact, have ownership and rights transferred over. So, basically, yeah, you can, in fact, resell your games no matter what. And I think that's a fantastic idea. I think it's a step in the right direction, especially towards consumer rights, because I think that's what puts off a lot of people when it comes to an all-digital future. You hear all these people talking about how we're going to have an all-digital future and all this kind of stuff, but a lot of people get turned off because, you can't resell your games. They're permanently on your hard drive or in your library, and if they get delisted, then too bad, you're basically screwed over. So I think that this is a step in the right direction, and honestly, I kind of wish we could do that in the US, but unfortunately that won't exactly happen. But anyway, I think that this is a good idea, and I congratulate the group on finally fighting for consumer rights. Anyway, okay, so this one I thought was really interesting. So recently there was a new studio that was opened up called Once Lost Games, and what makes it unique is the fact that it was founded by the original creators of the Elder Scrolls. That's right, Todd Peterson, Julian LeFay, Vijay Lakshman, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, and Ian Phoenix have all come together to make a brand new RPG that they're calling a massive open world fantasy adventure. So I am totally excited for this because I think a lot of people, when it comes to the Elder Scrolls, they usually think of every game from Morrowind unto now, but a lot of people haven't really played like Arena and Daggerfall, and those guys did an amazing job with those games. If you've never played Elder Scrolls 1 and 2, you really should play them because they're far more expansive than even the later games are. Like, we're talking, like, Daggerfall still has the largest map of any game ever made, and I'm not counting Minecraft in that because that's usually randomly generated. I'm talking like predetermined maps. Like, that Elder Scrolls has Elder Scrolls 2 has the largest map in any game ever made. And the amount of stuff you could do in that game was absolutely amazing. You could buy a horse, but you could also buy a cart to go to the horse. You could become a traveling merchant. You could buy real estate. You could buy a ship and go be a merchant, or you could go be a pirate. You could, if you committed a crime, not only could get arrested, but you had to go to trial and actually had to defend yourself in front of a judge. And if you didn't, you went to jail. It was just so amazing that game did so much in 1996, and to see the series has kind of like gone away from that is kind of sad. So I'm totally excited to see what these guys are up to, especially given today's technology and just what you could do with it. I think it's interesting because a lot of people also think that like Todd Howard created Elder Scrolls. He didn't. He didn't come into the franchise until Elder Scrolls 2, and even then he didn't start making decisions until around Morrowind. So I'm super excited to see what these guys are up to. Definitely keep an eye on them, folks, because there's going to be some good stuff coming out of there. Anyway, next topic. And for our final topic, Death Stranding has gone gold. That's right, after 3 years and countless millions of Sony's money, the game is officially finished and is now ready to be printed and released on November 8th. Of course, personally, I think this brings up a whole brand new issue as to whether or not Kojima can actually properly explain this game in time for people to actually be interested in it. Because honestly, from what I saw after Gamescom, a lot of people who were interested have completely lost interest or have no idea what the hell the game is even about and just don't want to even bother with it. And I feel the exact same way. But hey, they finally got it friggin' finished. So, and as I mentioned earlier, it also has a really nice PS4 Pro bundle. And I'm going to be quite frank, I wouldn't mind owning that controller because it actually looks really cool. Maybe, buy it and then modify it, put some LEDs in there and have it light up. That would actually be really nice. But other than that, I have no interest in this game at all, and I'm not entirely sure. I just have that feeling that this game is going to be a flop because that always happens. You put millions and millions of dollars into a game and you hype it up and you get all these celebrities, and then eventually people are just not interested because, surprise, surprise, you didn't put much into the gameplay, and that's what I'm seeing here. So anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and that's it for this week. I want to thank you all for listening. If you've got any questions to be answered on next week's episode, please leave them down below. It's always welcome. You can also follow me on YouTube, BitChute, Twitter, and Gab. Links are in the description. So anyway, folks, I'll see you all next week. And remember that video games will never die.